Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast, the podcast and talk show where we have digital discussions from the worlds of TV, film, pop culture, social media, sports, news, everything really, depending on the guest. We talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On social media, you know me as PD Beats. My guest is the co-owner and CEO of a production company called Media Button. We are speaking to Jen Araki. Jen, welcome to Popternative.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
No problem. I mean, you are the CEO of a production company, so you make things. Did you always know that you were going to kind of land in a position where you were going to make something and create content?
I always knew that I wanted to be a storyteller. Ever since I watched Wizard of Oz as a child, that was it for me. I was obsessed. I was like, whatever Judy Garland is doing to be able to play in that magical world, like I want that. So I'd write books when I was little, and my goal was to make it out to Los Angeles, which I ended up doing. I lived in New York for 8 years. I started out modeling, and that was kind of my gateway to filmmaking and acting and everything I'm doing now. But I took advantage of that. Never really thought of myself as a model at all. Growing up, super tomboy, and learned my way and found my way into it, and then lived in New York for about 8 years and then Los Angeles.
There's a lot of transitions, right? There's people that, in music and they act. There are people that act and go into music. There are people that, act and go into modeling. The modeling to like filmmaking and acting, does that happen a lot more than we think? Or is that kind of like a bit rare?
Yeah, I feel like you do actually have to prove yourself quite a bit more than people would think, because it's kind of that old thing of like, oh, you're a model and you want to be an actor now. Do you know how much work that is? Do you know what that takes? You can't just stand there and look pretty, so to speak. So I think there is a lot of opportunity to move over, but I think you got to really work hard to do that and prove yourself to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the type of content that you kind of enjoy creating, and talk a little bit about some of the projects that you've had a chance to work on and some of the things that you're doing with Media Button, Jen.
Yeah, so I'd say we could start with kind of the project that forced me onto the other side, which was kind of a happy accident. I was about to act in a movie called Game Time. It was playing a basketball player, and I was training to play basketball a lot at that time. And then someone asked me, hey, do you want to come play basketball with these kids? It's a volunteer thing. You can come to the park, and It's in Compton. I was in Los Angeles. I was like, yeah, perfect. Yeah, I'd love to come. I'm actually playing a lot right now. And that opened my eyes into all of what was going on in the foster care system. And that's when I decided to make my first feature, which is called We Gotta Get Out of Here, which I've been working on for about 6 years now. So it's on Amazon.com now in the US. But that was my baby. And I think what really led me to the other side is just that pure passion of like really wanting to help these kids, and like seeing what the issue was and seeing how storytelling really can help make a difference and open people's eyes. And that was like, as soon as I got a taste of that, I was like, you know what? I absolutely love this side of the camera. I love directing, I love producing, and I mostly love storytelling that will help make a difference. And I just love working in the doc world. So I continued that, and I'm working on a second feature right now called They Call Me Superman, and ended up moving to Vancouver and met Dylan Playfair, who was on your show, my fiance, and we bought a production company together. So now our company does all sorts of things, from corporate videos to commercials to docs to music videos, and some film and TV we're getting into now.
Yeah, it came on the show 5 years in the making. But the wait, no, it was worth it. It's pretty cool too. It's pretty cool too because I interviewed him for like a hockey movie, which is like our big passion, right? So like it was kind of like a full circle thing where like my show kind of started off because I was in the hockey world, and kind of I feel like it's the same thing with Dylan too, where like he played hockey growing up, so a lot of people he knows is in hockey, so that's kind of where he started. You know what I mean? Yeah. For you though, like I'm just curious, like with the modeling stuff. I mean, I find it interesting because the world of a model, I mean, like you're in photo shoots like all the time. There's a lot of deadlines and everything. Did some of the stuff from the modeling maybe help you, do you think? Like with your like filmmaking, or did that really not have anything to do with it? Like I feel like you learn a lot from like the modeling world, like with the
Yeah,
deadlines and everything and the events and everything.
for sure. I feel like you learn a ton, and I think there's good and bad, and you learn from them both. Like being a model, especially in the era that I was,
Mm-hmm.
it was like it was a different world. You know, you were shipped off to different places at I was 13, 14, 15 years old, going to Europe, going to New York, and having to be able to fend for myself. My mom came with me until I was about 17, 18, but still you're going to these jobs, you're learning how to talk to people, work with new people, navigate sticky situations. So I think like it can make you really strong and learn how things are supposed to be and how things aren't supposed to be, and how you can make people feel comfortable versus uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the documentary that you did, which is on Amazon right now, that was your first feature film. I remember, seeing an interview with, Jonah Hill, who usually kind of like acts, but he directed a film called Mid '90s, and I really liked an interview he did. I was intrigued by it, where they asked him about, what he hoped people would get out of the movie and everything. And what he was saying is like after he did this movie, the one thing that kind of like stood out to him is he's like he couldn't wait to make another movie. Like he wrapped that movie and he wanted to go in right away and work on another one. Was it safe to say that was kind of the same thing when you wrapped your first film, Jen?
Yeah, everything was crazy. Because at the time that I was filming it, I was learning how to do what I was doing, and also I was still modeling. So I felt like I was in two separate worlds. I'd go to my modeling photo shoot and then have a hat and some hoodies, switch onto that, go to Compton, Inglewood area and film there. So I think like, it's such an interesting transition. I think I met somebody on the first doc, and I said to myself, one day I'm going to make a documentary. And his name's Juan Jimenez, they call me Superman. And I remember thinking that day interviewing him, he's going to be my next guy. And as soon as I wrapped, it was, I think, a matter of weeks before I sat down with him and said, I want to do something special with you. So
I find the documentaries interest me because I feel like you always have this kind of idea of what you want your documentary to be about, and I feel like does it happen either certain situations like you mentioned where you want to kind of focus on a certain person, but does it sometimes have to do with the fact that maybe it's just like about like a specific idea that you kind of narrow it down? Like how does that come to be? Is it mostly about a specific person, or maybe about like kind of like a specific like genre or topic?
mm-hmm. I think for me, I've been lucky in that way that if I have a connection with a person that, with Superman, everyone calls him that. He just wore his heart on his sleeve. And I remember him just talking to me about his life and his life story. And I was so intrigued and wow, you've done so much. You've gone through so much. You're so inspiring. And the more that I learned about him, I was like, there's something really special with this guy. And it just was an organic, flow, I guess you could say. And I think the main common denominator, which I found myself in, is like youth. And like, with Superman, he's a boxing coach that helps take kids off the street and teaches them how to box. And I think that's just a subject that I've found my way into that really inspires me and changes me as a person too. Because the people I meet, I'm just like, you have gone through so much and you are just so strong. I can't complain about anything after being surrounded by some of the people that I've been surrounded by.
And do you think that's the appeal with a lot of documentaries, with the fact that we kind of get to dive into these stories of people that we don't really know about, that are very, emotional, very heartfelt, heartbreaking at times as well? Do you think that's kind of the intrigue with documentaries? Because I feel like documentaries are like huge, you know what I mean? Like there's definitely been kind of like a wave that the documentary world has kind of ridden in the last couple of years.
Yeah, because I think, there was this time where reality TV was a big thing and kind of took over. And then, documentaries found its way back because I think people were really craving that authenticity. And I think for docs, it is one of those things, especially as those subject matters where you go, you know, this is sad and it's hard to watch, but you see the beauty and the strength of the people that just keep on going. And with We Got to Get Out of Here, the obstacles that these kids go through on a daily basis would break anyone, most people, you know, just going through one of those things. And every day they're just a new obstacle, something hard to go through, and they don't have any parents. And I think, you know, the rewarding thing is a couple comments even after my first premiere of the doc was someone came up to me and said, I only had one parent and I was always really angry about it. And I watched your doc and I realized, damn, I was lucky to have a mom. And those are the moments that go, wow, like I'm so happy that it's touching people in that way, because the end goal is for, I think, everyone to realize that there's this bubble 20-minute side of Hollywood that is so different than what everybody else is living on an everyday basis. And if you just drive 20 minutes, you don't have to hop on a plane to help, or you don't have to, you know, go very far. But there's a lot of kids suffering in that area, and it's really sad. But, you know, the more people know about it, I think the more people will step in to help.
No, absolutely. I find it interesting too, because you did mention that, you know, you and Dylan, you know, work on this production company together, and, you know, you guys are creating content. And it's funny because I know a lot of other kind of couples, you know, like, you know, Kevin Alejandro from Lucifer, him and his wife, you know, they have Alejandro Films, and they're making their own kind of productions as well. Is that kind of safe to say, like, you know, for yourself and Dylan, you know, where, you know, you work like in the industry, you work on projects, you go here and there, but it's like kind of an opportunity for you guys to also hone in on like projects you guys are passionate about that you can actually like sink your teeth in and dive into as well. Is that kind of one of the reasons too why you guys wanted to go ahead with Media Button as well, to do like your specific passion projects?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, there's a balance that I had to find in my life, because I'm, you know, when I'm into something, I go way overboard, 110%. Like, I'm pretty sure I didn't sleep for 2 years while I was filming that documentary. And I did crash and burn, and it was a lesson to go, you know what, like, you gotta be able to balance, like have some time in the year that you're doing some projects that are a little less heavy and a little bit, you know, they're enjoyable in different ways, but then you're able to take the time to do those passion projects, but not just all one thing all the time, you know, because I think you can get pretty worn out that way. So for us, having control over what we create
That's a
the
big thing too. Yeah,
yeah.
that's the obvious one too, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's neat to have that and to be able to see all the talent just we found in Vancouver to help us do that and help us with our company. It's just been awesome. But you know, a lot of learning lessons. If you would have asked me even 5 years ago, would I be running a company? I would have been like, what are you talking about? I'm in freelance. I'll do this or do that. But I never thought I'd be in this position, but I'm really glad I am, and I feel really fortunate, even though it's a ton of work.
Do you think one of the misconceptions in the entertainment industry is kind of like the starting point of it? I mean, obviously networking comes into play, knowing people, collabing, working on things, but some people have a hard time actually starting, you know what I mean? Like, do you feel like that's kind of a little bit of misconception in terms of like, it's kind of it comes off like it's a lot harder just to kind of like write a script, or just kind of like to get a movie out there, like, because the industry, there's a lot of, you know, restrictions and red tape. But I mean, I hear from a lot of people, like, if you have a great idea and you have a camera, you know what I mean, you can go out and shoot something, you know what I mean?
100%. I think that's really my advice to a lot of people who want to just start creating. It's like, you don't need an old film camera and it's super expensive anymore. Like, you could shoot something on your iPhone if you want, you know, and there's no reason to not create. And I think a lot of people discouraged me when I was about to make the documentary. They're like, oh, this is so much harder than you know, da da da. But I think keeping ignorance as bliss to a certain extent is a really important factor, because if you think about how hard it is all the time, you're never going to go do it. But if you just jump right into it, you know, it may not be easy all the time, but I think if you just go for it, what's the worst that can happen, you know?
Absolutely. And how important is it for Jen Araki to wear many hats? Because you do wear many hats. You do a lot of different things. How important is that?
I think it's in my blood, and sometimes I wish it wasn't. But it's like there's things that I've done that I'm like, okay, I need to slow it down. Like I got my drone certification to be a drone operator. I'm like, I really don't need to also put that on my plate. So I let that one
Cool,
go.
actually.
But, I do have I put it upon myself to always kind of challenge myself. And I think that's just something that, has also been put in my system since I was a kid, because my parents have been entrepreneurs and they've kind of showed me just go for it and do it and try new things. And if it doesn't work out, you'll be okay.
Absolutely. No, for sure. Well, Jen, thank you so much for coming on Popternative. I'm really happy we were able to get this done.
Me too. Thank you so much. It was awesome talking to you.
Absolutely. Plug away. Where can people kind of check out the projects from Media Button? Where can they follow Media Button, and where can they follow you on social media to keep up to date with everything?
Yeah, for sure. So my Instagram's just Jen Araki, and you could go to Media Button's website or Instagram, Media Button, and as well as Crystal Mountain Films is another division that we have for film and TV, and you can find We Gotta Get Out of Here on Amazon.com. It always helps if you leave reviews, so please do so, and just want to get the word out there and keep spreading what we're trying to message for the foster care system.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for doing this interview, and I wish you all the best too with your upcoming projects as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Jen Araki and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.